What's going on, To Make Focaccia? My name is Joshua Williamson. So for this whole video recipe, I'm going to show you how to make focaccia. It's really easy to make, time consuming, it's true, but it's worth it. This is one of my favorite breads in the world. And also, before we get started, I will say everything in this video is going to be measured in grams. All the ingredients are measured in grams, so if you don't have a kitchen scale, go out and buy one before you try this. But anyways, let's get started. So to start off, in this bowl, I have 670 grams of water. It's cold water, by the way, and the reason why it's cold is I'm going to put this in the microwave for 30 seconds, then repeat that until you stick a thermometer in the water and it reaches a temperature of between 105 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit. I aim for 110 degrees Fahrenheit because I think that's the ideal temperature for yeast to be in. Okay, so as you can see, my water is at the correct temperature. Now I'm gonna add 18 grams of instant dry yeast, and I'm gonna mix that in with a fork, and after that, I'm gonna let it sit for about 10 minutes, just so to check if the yeast is good. If it's bubbly, if it starts bubbling in the water, that means that it's good. If it doesn't start bubbling, that means that either your yeast is not good or your water is too hot. By the way, the smell of yeast mixed in with warm water is one of the best smells in my opinion. It smells fantastic. This is what happens when the yeast is good. If it doesn't form any bubbles like that, that means either your yeast is bad or your water isn't at the right temperature. Next, I have 900 grams of bread flour, or you could use all-purpose flour. It doesn't matter. I like using bread flour because it has more gluten, and bread is very glutinous, as you guys already know. But to that, I'm going to add 18 grams of salt, and I'm going to mix that in. And yes, I do have a glove on, and I'm going to show you why. We're going to take that water and yeast that just sit, and we are just going to mix that in with our hands. Yes, I know this seems a bit weird, but trust me, it's a lot easier wearing a glove and mixing this in with your hands, because if you were to do this with a spoon, a bunch of the stuff would just keep clinging onto the spoon and it's a nightmare to get off. Now the dough will be very wet, and yet that's actually how you want it to be. But anyways, we're going to add 18 grams of olive oil to that mixture, and we're going to mix that in the same way we did with our hands until it's combined. After everything is mixed in, what you want to do is cover the bowl in plastic wrap and let it sit for about 20 minutes. After it's been rested, first of all, it does increase in its size, of course, because of the yeast. But what we're going to do now is a series of stretches and folds. What that is, well, basically you just take the dough and you stretch it up like this and you fold it. You stretch it up as far as you can without tearing it. I made that mistake right there. But anyways, use wet hands, by the way, to make sure it doesn't stick too much to you. After you stretch and fold it that way, turn it 90 degrees, and then take another side, then stretch it up like this until as far as you can without tearing it, then fold it over like that. Repeat that exact same thing, another 90-degree turn, another side, stretch, and fold. And then the fourth side, pick it up, stretch it as far as you can without tearing it, and then fold it. And let it rest again for about 30 minutes, covered in plastic wrap, obviously. After it's rested, we're going to do another set of stretch and folds. Like I said, you're going to lift it up and stretch it as far as you can without tearing the dough, then fold it over. Again, turn it over 90 degrees, stretch it like this until it's far enough to where you don't tear the dough, fold it over, and turn it again. Again, make sure your hands are wet so that it doesn't stick. Stretch, fold. And then the fourth side, stretch as far as you can without tearing the dough, and fold. Then cover it in plastic wrap again and let it rest for another 30 minutes. And then after it's rested, once again, we're doing another stretch and fold. Basically, we're doing this stretch and fold process a total of 4 times. See, doing this will build structure in your dough, and as you can see, the dough is becoming more stretchy. That's because of the stretch and folds and rests that we've been doing. And then another 30-minute rest. Now, after it's rested, we're doing the final stretch and fold. Again, stretch as far as you can without tearing the dough, and then fold over, turn 90 degrees, stretch, fold, turn 90 degrees, stretch, fold, and then turn a final 90 degrees, stretch, and fold. Next, get a 9x13" pan, pour a bunch of olive oil in it and rub it up the sides as well and make sure everything is coated in it. And take that dough that you made and put it on there, smooth side up. And then gently spread it to all the edges and corners. Also, make sure that the dough is fully coated in that oil as well. If you have a hard time getting the dough to all the edges and corners, cover the pan in plastic wrap and let it rest for about 15 or 20 minutes. And that should make it a lot easier to get it to all the edges and corners. And doing this will also form a few bubbles, like that one right there, which is really cool. And we're gonna let it rise one more time for 1 hour, covered in plastic wrap, obviously. While the dough is rising right now, I'm gonna make an emulsion to top the dough with before we bake it. In this bowl, I have 40 grams of olive oil. To that, I'm gonna add 40 grams of water. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix those together for about 2 to 3 minutes, or until they form a thicker consistency, which is an emulsion. This is what it should look like. All right, so now that the dough has risen, what I'm gonna do now, I wetted my hands and I'm gonna stick my fingers through each part of the dough and make dimples in it. This is what one of the things that focaccia is well known for, is having a bunch of dimples to it. Just put your fingers through, don't go through the dough, but make sure you touch the bottom of the pan and just make a bunch of dimples. Go like about 2 rounds down the direction I'm going. Now take that olive oil and water mixture that you made and pour it all over the top. Make sure it's covering all of the top. And I'm gonna add a couple toppings to it. First, I've got some fresh rosemary that I'm gonna place in certain places. And lastly, I'm gonna sprinkle all over the top with some coarse kosher salt, or flaky salt, which I think is a little better, but I can't find anywhere around me. And also, you can actually experiment with a lot of other toppings. You could stick some olives on top of there. You could confit some garlic cloves and then put them on there. Or you could even just make a pizza with this. You could just, first of all, add the emulsion, then top with some pizza sauce and cheese and other pizza toppings, and you just make a pizza out of this. But anyways, I'm done sprinkling the coarse kosher salt on top. What I'm going to do now is put this in the oven at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. I forgot what that is in Celsius, I'm sorry, but you want to put it in for about 25 to 30 minutes. After the focaccia is done baking, put the pan on a wire rack and then cover it with a towel and let it rest for about 5 minutes under that. Alright, the focaccia is done. Like I said, it was really easy and simple. Yeah, it's time consuming, it's true, but in the end, it's worth it. This is an amazing bread. It's one of my favorite breads of all time, and it's honestly a really good entryway into making bread for someone who's never made bread before. I'm gonna cut off a piece over here just to show you the interior. This right here is the interior. It's really soft. The outside is crispy. I love that crispy outside that this bread has. Listen how crunchy. You hear that? That's fantastic. But if you tried this, leave me in the comment section down below and tell me what you thought. Whether you liked it or you hated it. If you liked it, you thumb up. Hates you thumb it down. And be sure to subscribe to become a member of the To Make Focaccia on a journey to 10,000 subscribers. See you later.